David Toop, for everyone who doesn't know him, is a musician, author, professor, and chair of audio culture and improvisation at the London College of Communication. He has published 5 books, including Ocean of Sound, Rap Attack, and Sinister Resonance. Exhibitions he has also curated and include Sonic Boom for the Hayward Gallery and Playing John Cage for Arno Fini in Bristol. His first album, New and Rediscovered Musical Instruments, was released on Brian Eno's obscure label in 1975, and he has collaborated with many artists, ranging from John Latham, Bob Cobbing, Carlyle Reedy, and Ivor Cutler, to Rin Nakayama, Evan Parker, and Akio Suzuki. David, the stage is yours.
Okay, 3 interiors. This is a vanitas painting by Dutch 17th century painter Adrien Court, and it shows the transience of life. So you can see the various objects which emphasize this, the fact that life is short. So musical instruments, for example, because sound itself is transient. But what interests me here is the skull in the center, and the skull is my first interior. And if we're talking about skulls, then I think the best place to go is Samuel Beckett. And I'm going to read you a passage from Malone Dies, which takes us into this first interior with which we are also familiar. The noises too, cries, steps, doors, murmurs, cease for whole days, their days. Then that silence of which, knowing what I know, I shall merely say that there is nothing. How shall I merely say nothing negative about it? And softly my little space begins to throb again. You may say it is all in my head, and indeed sometimes it seems to me I am in a head, and that these 6 planes that enclose me are of solid bone. But thence to conclude the head is mine, no, never. A kind of air circulates. I must have said so. And when all goes still, I hear it beating against the walls and being beaten back by them. And then somewhere in mid-space, other waves, other onslaughts gather and break, whence I suppose the faint sound of aerial surf that is my silence. Or else it is the sudden storm, analogous to those outside, rising and drowning the cries of the children, the dying, the lovers, so that in my innocence I say they cease, whereas in reality they never cease. It is difficult to decide. And in the skull, is it a vacuum, I ask? And if I close my eyes, close them really, as others cannot, but I can, for there are limits to my impotence, then sometimes my bed is caught up into the air and tossed like a straw by the swirling eddies, and I in it. Fortunately, it is not so much an affair of eyelids, but, as it were, the soul that must be veiled, that soul denied in vain, vigilant, anxious, turning in its cage as in a lantern, in the night without haven or craft or matter or understanding. Ah, yes, I have my little pastimes, and they... Second interior. This is Atsuko Tanaka installing her work Bell in 1955 at the first Gutai exhibition in Tokyo. And what the work is a series of bells arranged around the edge of the room, the walls and the floor, and they're activated by a switch. And the people who come to the gallery are asked to press the switch. Now, one of the things that's interesting about this work is that Atsuko Tanaka thought of herself as a painter, and she thought of this work, Bell, as a painting, which is mysterious. But for her, it was a painting because it articulated space through the intangibility of sound. And there's a very interesting thing that another Gutai artist, Fujiko Shiraga, wrote about the activation of Atsuko Tanaka's work, Bell. She wrote, "When I heard about the Bell work, I could not understand it clearly. At the exhibition site, when it sounded from the next room, I still could not understand it. I understood it clearly when I pressed the switch marked 'Push as much as you like,' and the bells sounded throughout the room. I was impressed. Noisy bells let me indulge in what I like as much as I can. I can take as much as I want. However much I take, it will not run out. Only those who press the bell can receive it. That is how I felt. The sound of the bell someone else pressed is very noisy. If you press it yourself, you get just what you want. In other words, even though you did not make the work and are only a viewer, by pressing this switch, you are on the very edge of the act of creating. This means that you can immerse yourself in the joy of making something you would never have dreamed of possible, and at the same time, you experience the terror of being responsible to yourself to the very limit. Consequently, the emotion that runs through your body, together with the sound of the bells, is entirely different from the appreciation of artworks until now. It is so vehement that you feel as if you are being beaten. This is where I identify the unlimited abundance of Miss Tanaka's spirit, even if she did it simply for herself, without intending to provide others with anything." Third interior. This is a painting by another Dutch 17th century artist, Nicholas Maas, and it's called The Eavesdropper, or The Listening Housewife. Maas painted a series of these pictures. He was a student of Rembrandt as a very young man, as an adolescent in fact. He was from Dordrecht. And he moved to Amsterdam to study with Rembrandt. And some of his early paintings depicted variations on this scene. And what is so interesting to me about this scene is that it depicts a moment of listening in an interior. So you see what is happening here is that there's a kind of tedious looking dinner party or something going on in the background, and the wine has run out. And the woman in the center has come with the wine jug to see what is happening. And as she reaches the stairs here, the wooden stairs, she stops. You can't see it in the reproduction, but if you see this painting in the Wallace collection, you can see that her foot is poised, is held above the stair. And the reason for this is because the wooden stairs creak. So she is holding her foot above it so as not to make any sound. And what she's hearing is happening down in this bottom right-hand corner, which looks to us a bit like a TV set or a computer screen, but it's in fact the downstairs of the upstairs, the maid's quarters. And the maid is, you can see, is being manhandled here by this character, who we know is a soldier because his coat and his sword are draped over this chair. And she has become distracted by the soldier and forgotten about the wine. And the main thing about this painting, I think, is that the woman is standing with her finger on her lips. So what she's saying is, shh, be quiet, listen to this with me. So there's a collusion, in a way, across the centuries, that you, as the person perceiving the work, are suddenly implicated in this prurient act of eavesdropping to this erotic encounter in the bottom right-hand corner. And I think what made me so intrigued by this work is partly it represents the unrepresentable in a silent medium, that's to say sound. It represents a moment of time, frozen. And of course, that's what these kind of paintings are about. They're a moment of time frozen. But it freezes something that is actually not present in the painting, which is the sound. But it also examines the behavior of sound itself and fixes on the nature of sound, which is that sound is an intangible property that is invasive and has very few boundaries. So one of the properties of sound that makes it so powerful is its transience. Once you hear a sound, it's gone in the air. So it connects us with many big human experiences like loss. The other aspect of sound that's interesting is we can hear it through barriers, we can hear it round corners. And you notice in this painting that the only people who can see the source of the sound is you yourself, the perceiver of the painting. The woman in the painting can't see what she's hearing. So Mars was, in a way I think of Mars as one of the first sound artists, because he was beginning to explore these aspects of sound and listening practice away from music. And he's beginning to explore sound in relation to the power struggle of the domestic interior, for example, or the nature of acoustics in rooms and how sound travels. And actually I have, I said 3 interiors, but I have 4 interiors, and this is the 4th interior. And this, I would say, is the consequence of not thinking about sound in interiors, when sound is not considered as an active element of lived experience, and when interiors are conceived in terms of how they look. But sound, as the invader, as the intruder, is the most volatile element in relation to interiors. So we can leave it to Goya to show the consequences of ill-considered sound. Thank you.